Hey, Trailblazers, this is Jason, your host of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. Before we jump into our latest episode, I've got some incredible news for you. Are you gearing up for your next big hike or backpacking trip? Well, we at Trailblazing Texas podcast have partnered up with Trekker Joe's, the ultimate Texas outfitter, to bring you something I feel absolutely special. Listeners, you of the Trailblazing Texas podcast can now get a one-time 15% off their gear purchases at Trekker Joe's. That's right. Whether you're a first-time customer at Trekker Joe's or a repeat customer like me, you can save big and hit the trails well prepared. So upon checkout, use code TTP15 to claim your 15% discount and in the process support an amazing local Texas business. So happy trails, and don't forget to tell your hiking buddies. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. So have you ever had any bear encounters?
Yeah, definitely. I've seen them around.
How did you handle it?
I guess, a few of them I've just been in my car, so I just like whatever. That's no big deal. With my brother on the Pacific Crest Trail, we saw a bear in Yosemite. It was funny, he was like a little bit ahead of me, and then I'm kind of just, I don't know, zoning out, and then he just stops dead in his tracks, and I see him stop, and I'm like, well, let's go. He's like, points out the bear. He just back up slowly and give the bear space. Then like this guy with his little girl come up, and we were like, oh, there's a bear there, be careful. And they're like, oh, it's fine. And they just walk right past it. Well, they must have come within like 5 feet of it. I don't know how close, but they were close. Then another PCT hiker came. We were just not gonna walk past it. We were gonna wait till it moved on. And another PCT hiker came by. I think he's Australian. He's like, "Oh, I've seen like 7 in the past day, mate. Like no big deal." And so we just walked past him with this other guy. We let that guy go first, and then we just walked past him. Then later in Washington, we saw a bear, and it was a cub, and it was snowy, and we saw it, but it was, way up on the mountain, really far away from us. And so we were just cautious. We were like, okay, like I don't see the mama anywhere, but like just keep an eye out. In general, it's, I've seen them in California. Like you just kind of give them their space and hope they just don't mess with you, and they normally don't. I don't know. I don't ever carry bear spray or anything.
Yeah, and I've had one bear encounter at Big Bend. We were on the window trail, and me and my second youngest, Connor, we were walking, and I didn't even see the bear, and it was like 30 feet to the right off the trail, just kind of digging around in some, like a little tree bush, trying to, I guess, I don't know what it was doing, trying to find some grub. And this guy yelled at me and goes, "Hey, hikers, there's a bear to your right." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "There's a bear right next to you." And so I looked, and sure enough, it was a mom and her cub. I was more like frozen in excitement, like, oh my God, like I want to,
Yeah.
watch it, and a shock of fear. It was excitement. And I remember Connor goes, Dad, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know about you. I can outrun you. What are you going to do? And he's kind of looked at me with this white face, but she didn't give two craps about us. She looked up,
Yeah.
and then she went on about her business. And I think if we were in grizzly country, it's a totally different way to handle it. But I just, maybe if you're on the AT or maybe some of the PCT, even like I guess in Colorado, and you're around these big towns where people are feeding them or they're getting into the trash and they're associating us with food, maybe it's something different. But like I've just never experienced a black bear or heard of where a black bear is just out in the woods and they're coming after you. It was more of excitement. Got a video of it, and Uh, that was awesome. And I have a bucket list. Henning and I always talk about it. Get out in the Guadalupe Mountains, sit out on a ridge, and just try to find a mountain lion, around dusk or dawn. To the listeners, if you haven't heard, we have a volunteer out at Guadalupe Mountains. Her name is Pam Bells. And if that name rings a bell, the movie Infinite Storm was based off a rescue that she did. Well, so she's now a volunteer at our national park here in Texas, Guadalupe Mountains. And so every time I go to Guads, I find her, because she's usually on the peak trail saving people, or she's involved in all the body recoveries, people dying of a heart attack or whatever. All the rescues she's a part of. She's in her 70s. Still, I think about 3 weeks ago, she just had her 300th summit of Guadalupe Peak. So, and it's neat to have mentioned her in some of the Facebook groups of the Lone Star Hiking Trail, of Midland, Odessa, or um, San Antonio hiking community, and all the people that she's helped. Oh my God, I know her. I twisted my ankle and she came, or she gave me water, or she did this, did that. Anyway, before I knew she was Pam Bells, I just knew her as Ranger Pam. And I would always look for her because I would always get, or always get kind of the stories of the happenings of the park that you don't get from the news articles, or we talk about, because she's seen 4 or 5 mountain lions. I think within a week's time, her schedule is to hike all the trails in the park, and just what kind of shape they're in and stuff. So she's stumbled across mountain lions and stuff. So we're always talking about where she sees them, and that, so it's a goal of mine. Is That's kind of the last thing that I have to do at Guadalupe Mountains, is just watch a mountain lion. And I can't wait.
Yeah, I've never seen one in the wild. I've seen them at a zoo, but that it would be amazing to see a wild one. Do you know where in general she's like, if she has she given you advice on like where you'd find them?
Yeah, it's in the back country. So anywhere around Dog Canyon, down Tejas, down Push to the Bowl, in that area. And that's a little bit where Mr. Barry, the gentleman that got lost. So he was out there in some of that area when he was lost, and that's prime mountain lion area. Yeah. So it was funny. He asked them about that when he was rescued, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's the popular area for mountain lions and stuff." But he said he never heard anything. What safety tips would you have for? So let me rephrase that. So it's probably the same, in Texas and New Mexico, Colorado. But can you think of any safety tips that you would think would be not so much geared towards Texas, but something that you would definitely think would be a part of, what somebody needs to think about while they're hiking in New Mexico?
Well, the first thing that comes to my head is uh I guess it probably depend on where you are in Texas, but like don't leave any valuables in your car, they'll get stolen.
That happens a lot at y'all's trailheads.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It is like pretty similar. I don't know specific New Mexico safety. Flash floods maybe are a bigger deal, maybe here.
Oh yeah,
Um, I guess it depends on where you are in Texas, because I imagine West Texas has a lot of flash floods too.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, there's flash floods in the. I guess like just keep an eye on the weather, and if you go normally if you're on a trail, like a well established trail, there'll be like signs and stuff like if flooding or flat possible flash flood area. But definitely up north where I'm from, and there's a lot of canyons. People, yeah. And I don't have much advice on what to do about that. Don't I mean, because I will go hiking in the monsoon season in the canyons, and it's just sort of like I've never seen one. I've had friends who've seen one. Uh, go uphill if it starts happening. climb uphill.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what you would have. I mean, and especially the location you're at now, the sun exposure's got to be a big one.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people understand that you should be covering up, and you're with moisture wicking, and it's no cotton, and the sun is going to cook you.
Yeah.
Sun hoodies, and you're gonna, yeah, it may just, if you've never worn one, just logically like, oh, long sleeves, it's going to be hot, but no, I mean your body's sweating, and that having that material and the moisture wicking, it's going to keep you cool and keep you from burning. I think that's kind of where I'm at. The Lone Star hiking trail, most of the times that we're hiking, we're in the woods, so there's a lot of tree cover, and it's not as bad. But yeah, I mean, North Texas and West Texas has got to be a lot like New Mexico. There's no there's no trees, there's no,
No.
unless you're in elevation. So yeah.
Yeah. And the sun here is powerful. I
Yeah.
think it's because we're higher up. Like even here, we're at I think 4,000 feet. So there's less atmosphere, and when there's less atmosphere, the sun there's more UV radiation or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll get cooked out here for sure in the sun. So wear like I have like a wide brim hat and a sun hoodie. If you're not from here, like definitely probably wear some sunscreen.
Yeah. So going a step further, what gear do you think is essential when you're hiking in New Mexico due to the diverse environments?
It kind of depends on what kind of hiking you're doing, but I mean, when I first started hiking, I was just in jeans and tennis shoes and so if you're not doing anything crazy, that's fine. But like if you're gonna start putting in big miles, have the more money you spend on having quality gear is awesome if you can afford it. Like
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Let me hit the record button on that. This is coming from a guy that I'm not going to talk about the last backpacking trip that we had.
yeah.
Cheeseburgers and a rip tit in 20-degree weather.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of cheap, so like I said
Yeah,
earlier, like you don't need much. You're just walking.
yeah.
I don't know. I think it's I don't know. People should get out and see the world, and if you don't have gear, you don't need that much, in my opinion. Bring a lot of water, but you don't. I mean, you can go to Walmart and buy a gallon jug of water for $1, and you're probably that's probably mostly what you need. Probably have a hat.
Yeah, so let's say hat, sun hoodie, sun sleeves, uh, sun gloves. But other than that, I can't think from a gear perspective, what we as Texas hikers would need. Because, I mean, we would hopefully have the majority of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Layering and shells, I think. So if you're in, depending on what you're doing here in Texas, like I've never used a shell, and Henning told me, pack a shell, pack a shell, pack a shell, pack a shell. And then I finally did, and it was the best thing that I ever packed. And I was like, I don't need a shell. I don't need a shell. This is Texas. I don't need one. But we were in the quads, and the wind was howling. There was, um, you know, inclement weather, and that shell was a lifesaver.
when you say shell, you mean like a waterproof layer, basically?
Yeah,
Or
blocking the wind, like a hard shell, like blocking the
oh,
wind,
yeah, hard shell.
water, really ready for anything.
Yeah, I never bring those. They're heavy, right? I mean,
No, they're light.
no. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of shell you got?
I will have to pull it up. I don't remember the brand. But yeah, I've had it for 4 or 5 years, and only no, I've had it for probably 7 or 8 years, and only here over the last 2 years I started packing it. And it's definitely part of my layering system. And I've come to realize that I much rather want it and not use it than not, or then need it and not have packed it,
Right. Rather have it and not need it than need it and not have
not
it.
have it. Yep.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The, yeah. You should text me the type of show you got.
I think I've got 2 or 3 of them now. So let's trade tips. You're hiking in the summer. How are you staying hydrated for your hiking in New Mexico?
I'd say pre-hydrate. Like you try and keep yourself at a good level of hydration all the time. If you've done any reading about it, it's if you're not hydrating like the night before, it's very hard, I think, to be hydrated enough. Like you can drink a bunch of water while you're like right if you just down like a huge thing of water right before, I don't know how much it helps.
I don't think that you process it all like you should.
Right.
If you drink a little bit the night before or even the day before, just start incorporating it, you know.
Yeah. Just try and drink as much water as you can every day. I mean, that's healthy and I forget. And then when you're on the trail, like it depends on how far you're going, but like I went bouldering in Hueco Tanks a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I just knew I was gonna be out there for many hours, so I was like, okay, I need a gallon. I need a gallon of water. And in general, if it's gonna be a long day, I just some like gallons enough for a long day for me. And if it's hot, I've never had a gallon of water and been like wished that I had more than a gallon. I've never gone through an entire gallon. I have run out of water when I've had only had like 2 or 3 liters. Maybe. Yeah, I've definitely run out of water a couple times, and it's not fun. So
Yeah. So I would definitely agree with you. And I think from the Texas aspect in New Mexico, we depending on where you're at in New Mexico, we do share a lot of the same commonalities where a lot of our hiking and backpacking are big water carries because, I'm at in North Texas and West Texas a lot, and there's no water. And then, certain areas in New Mexico, I've been there that, there's no water. And so for me, it's 2 or 3 days before the backpacking trip as I start drinking water and making sure that I stay on top of that. On my way to the trailhead from the hotel or whatever to start the trip, I usually have a liter of water. And even like tomorrow, I'm leading that hike. When I leave the house, I'll have a liter of water in the car, and I'll just start sipping on it or drinking until I get to the trailhead. The biggest change for me, and it's directly related to hydration and big water carries, are having the Trekker Joe's water bottle sleeve. I always complained about carrying 6, 7, 8 liters of water, the weight, and then I would always try to shortcut it and get it to the exact ounce, and then it's okay. I need 1 liter here, and maybe I don't drink that whole liter by the time I get to the campsite. Then I can cook, which is really stupid to play these types of games, especially in the backcountry out there. And I always did it because the weight of the water on my backpacks. I don't care if I'm using my Hyperlights, which are minimal backpacks or minimalistic backpacks, versus my Osprey that have all the big belts and the air mesh and all that crap. It was just always heavy. And so I'm carrying a heavy backpack to make it a little more comfortable with a lot of water, or I'm carrying a way light backpack that may not be as comfortable, but it's lighter and I'm still carrying a ton of water. But the Trekker Joe water bottle sleeve holders or water bottle sleeves, I first off, I can access water really quickly, but also I can carry water on the front of the shoulder straps as well as the water on the hip belts, and then if there's any need, I can carry water in the pouch or in the backpack itself. It just helps with the weight distribution, and it feels so much better. So then it facilitates me to not try to play these stupid games with shorting myself of water or making the trip maybe a little more miserable than what it probably is going to be by, okay, I'm not going to have coffee, or I'm not going to do that. I'll eat a bar, or I'm not going to have a meal. I'll eat this because of, I don't have enough water. So those are two things that really have helped me over the last few years for sure.
There you go. I need to get some of those.
You do. And to Sam and the listeners, if you go to trekkerjoes I think it's .org, and you order them on your first purchase, if you type in TTP15, you get 15% off your first purchase.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, all right. So I know this next question is really important to you because I've known you over the years. Um, how do you think hikers can or should contribute to the preservation of New Mexico's natural beauty, the trails, the mountains, just it in general? Like, what do you think the hiker's responsibility is by coming on the trail and keeping it spectacular and just the way they found it?
Yeah, well, I guess it's kind of maybe cliche at this point, but just L&T, you know. I'm sure everyone who listens to your podcast is pretty much on the same page as that on that thing. Just don't trash it. Don't trash the trails, you know. That's what I do. I mean, I I don't do a lot. I was thinking as you were saying it, like I was like, I wonder what would be good organizations to like try and contribute to and like help out with and give money to try and help preserve everything. But I honestly like, you know, just showing up and like if there's a fee to go wherever you're going, like paying that fee helps keep the places there, and just appreciate it and don't throw trash everywhere. Uh, pack it in, pack it out, and you know, be careful in especially here, like in New Mexico, we have crazy fires here. You know, like the town I'm from almost burned down like 3 times or something. So like, be careful. Probably just don't have a fire in general. Um, I almost never have fires out here. I'm not gonna say don't ever. I mean, just know, kind of maybe keep track of and maybe contact the forest you're going to and check out what the fire regulations are, because you don't want to burn down the forest.
And I think the biggest thing, or that really, there's three things that really irk me, and I'm not sure in New Mexico you have to have it, because I've been to the trailhead at um, Rio Grande Gorge. So, and I see this a lot in Guadalupe Mountains, and I'm kind of relating that because it's like where you're at in New Mexico. First off, if you if your dog poops on the trail, pick it up.
Yeah,
If your dog poops on the trail and you pick it up, don't leave the bag at the trailhead. Just take it with you. If you're out in the desert of the Guadalupe Mountains or where Sam lives, don't throw your orange pills on the ground, because they're not going to decompose, because it's a desert environment. The soil is, I don't want to say dead, but it's dead. It's You should never throw away your orange pills, even if you're in um, a thriving area and the soil is just rich with, I don't know, microorganisms. Don't throw your stuff on the. Don't. The little, you have a goo pack or you have a Cliff Bar, that little corner that you tear. Like, just put it back in the bag after you finish. Don't throw it on the ground, or, don't put it in your pocket, because you're probably going to put your hands in your pocket and then pull something out and it's going to fall on the ground. But I see that everywhere. Those three things. Yeah. So, I mean, just everything, just leave footprints, you know? Is there any specific leave no trace principles that are really important to you? Like, I just gave kind of my three that really irk me. Is there some that are more important to you than others?
Not really. It's just to me like the I don't know. Like if I were to see someone, I remember one of my coworkers was he's a big hunter and his he was just telling me stories about his friend. He went out hunting with his friend and his friend would just blatantly like every time he was done with a wrapper just throw it into the woods. And to me it's just like I don't know, that lack of not even trying, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you like accidentally a little thing that you ripped off, you accidentally it fell out of your pocket or whatever. It sucks, but like it's not that big of a deal. But like to just really not care at all and just be throwing your trash into the woods is like I don't. It's just such a different way of thinking than me, and I just don't get it. No, if I was with someone like that, I'd probably just wouldn't want to hang out with them anymore. I was just like, why do you need to trash? Why do you need to trash this beautiful place? Like, just don't,
No,
don't trash. It's not like it's hard to carry the thing out.
no. Yeah, and then also these people that carve their initials. Jojo loves Susie. No one cares. No one
Yeah,
cares. No one cares that you were there in 2019, January 2019. No one cares. Like, yeah, stop with your graffiti and destroying places. So, what role does the New Mexico Native American history play in the state's hiking culture? Because, like, you were talking about, you have ruins, you have ghost towns, you have all, just as probably even more richer than, historical figures than Texas, Colorado, maybe Arizona is up there with you guys. Um,
yeah. I mean, there's also in Colorado, there's like Mesa Verde too. But like here, there's I mean, it's not that, especially up where I'm from in Los Alamos, you just go out for a hike and you'd see pottery on the ground, ancient pottery, and
that's
um,
crazy.
yeah,
Can you touch
yeah,
it?
I found. Well, can you what?
Can you touch it?
Say it? Yeah, you can touch it. And I don't know. Um, it's bad juju to pick it up. Like, don't. They say up north, like, hey, you know what a skinwalker is?
Yes. You guys are the land of the skinwalkers.
If you steal pottery here, the skinwalkers will come after you. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what they say up north. I don't believe any of that stuff, but I mean, who knows? I also don't pick it up. I'm like,
Yeah.
why? I don't need this. Like, it's way cooler. When I was like 8, I think I took a piece of pottery. I was 8, and like but then it just sat in the corner of my room. That's dumb. Like why do that when like if you're out there on the trail and you find it, it's a super cool moment,
Yeah.
and like why wouldn't you want other people to have that moment too of being like, wow, look at this, instead of like trying to hoard it and keep it in your house for whatever reason. So leave it. I would say anything you find, any of that arrowheads, pottery. I would say just leave
Oh, Sam, that's my bucket list. I want to find a real
it.
arrowhead,
Okay.
but I'll leave it. It's going to be hard.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if I found like a really beautiful arrowhead, um, I'd be tempted to keep it too. Honestly, I would for sure. And I don't know.
Let's have a deal. You go buy a 10-cent arrowhead that's machine made. The next time we have a backpacking trip, you just throw it on the ground, let right in front of me, and let me find it, and then I'll get that out of my system.
I forget who it was I was talking to, but they would do that on purpose just to mess with people. They would hide fake arrowheads all around. I don't know why. To me. I'm like, it seems like a lot of effort for a weird thing to just like hide fake arrowheads in the woods just so someone would find it and think it's real and then not be real.
I heard a dad do that with his, like, 4 or 5-year-old son because he wanted to find one so bad, so at the gift store, he bought some, and then he was just chunking them out, and the kid was on in heaven.
Yeah, I could see that with the kid. That's cool. Whatever. For your own kid. For strangers, it's weird to me, but yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of beautiful, like Bandelier National Monument has some really cool cliff dwellings up a lot of places around Los Alamos have, and down here.
So can you share, speaking of skinwalkers, do you in New Mexico, do you have any interesting stories, or do y'all have any legends associated with the New Mexico hiking and trails and the all that kind of stuff? You have Bigfoot up there?
Bigfoot is the Pacific Northwest. Well, I don't know. And then people, yeah, no, there's no real Bigfoot stories here. But there's Chupacabra. You ever heard Chupacabra?
Yeah, y'all have that?
Yeah. Well, down here, I'm basically in Mexico. I mean, I, I'll, I'm close to Mexico. So down here is Chupacabra territory. Up in then there's Roswell with all the UFOs and
Oh,
aliens.
yeah.
Yeah. And then you go further north and there's the Skinwalkers, I guess. Well, the Skinwalkers probably everywhere here.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other Native American folklore. Like, uh, I knew this guy from the Pueblo. There's a bunch of Pueblos. So here in New Mexico, the Native Americans are the Pueblo Indians, and there's a whole bunch of different Pueblos. I couldn't even tell you how many there are, but this guy I knew was from Tesuque, which is close to Los Alamos, and he said that owls are witches. He's like, we don't like owls. Like, he hates owls because he thinks that the
Really?
owls are a witch. Yeah, for real. So be careful for the New Mexican owls. They might be a witch. Aliens, and then obviously, like, I grew up where the nuclear lab was, so there's all kinds of, like, weird government science projects going on. So who knows what kind of zombie or whatever, there's weird mutant that's gonna come crawling out of the woods.
So have you had any strange or stories that, like, chupacabra or alien or skinwalker or
Nothing. And I'm not a very superstitious person. I'm not really. I love the idea of, like, I like the stories and I like thinking about it, and I entertain the ideas. Like, I don't know, maybe there is a skinwalker out there. I haven't been through the entire forests of New Mexico, so nah, I haven't really seen anything. I mean, obviously, like out here, like um the sky is so big and prominent. Like, I've seen weird things in the sky. Like, I remember working up in Los Alamos. There's this weird white thing hovering there, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a weather balloon." I'm like, is it? Okay, that's probably what you would say if it was an alien. Like, I don't
yeah.
know. So, but nothing spectacular.
Yeah, I don't have any exciting stories about I did there is a website, I think, for the Lone Star Hiking Trail or in this East Texas where they talk about a Bigfoot. And I tell you, one time we were through hiking and it was about, I don't know, 4 in the morning, and I was way ahead of the guys that I was with. And, you could look back on the trail, as it's kind of in a straight line and see their headlamps. But then when you turn, like, you lose their light. And I couldn't see anything. So I just set my backpack down and I was sitting on top of it and I just popped my headlamp off. And as soon as I popped my headlamp off, I heard footsteps right behind me, like walking, not like a deer where it's like, 4 legs. It was literally two, like a step, then a breaking of a branch and a step. Man, I turned my light back on and I took off running back towards them. That was about the only kinda, and it was probably some guy on meth because there's a lot of areas out there that are pretty dodgy as you're walking through some of these neighborhoods and the roadwalks,
Yeah,
so that's probably what it was.
those are the monsters in New Mexico too. You got to worry about.
Yep,
The real monsters are the weird tweakers in the woods. It's
yep.
not
Oh, yeah,
the
there's once a year on
skinwalkers.
the Lone Star Hiking Trail, somebody will post, "Watch out, Trailhead 13, some guy's running down the trail naked." So, yeah. So, speaking of, like, the Native American history and stuff in New Mexico, and absolutely the trails, especially around your house, I was doing research. A lot of them are linked to old settlements, old buildings, and so how do you think hikers can respectfully engage with the culture and these historical sites that they encounter on the trail?
I don't know. Don't carve your name into things and don't leave trash everywhere. I don't know. Like, treat the place with respect, and if there's any signs saying like don't walk here, don't walk there.
Don't touch stuff. I think that also I was thinking about this question, and yeah, you're right. We did touch on some of this stuff, but I don't know about New Mexico, but just speaking of what I've seen in Colorado and Texas, these types of areas, usually have a way that you can help fund them to help either restore or help to keep them going. Like the one guy, like the $5 that you said in the BLM land, and they have a ranger there. So for me, if you're going to step foot on the trail and you're going to use it, like, think about maybe volunteering or think about other ways, outside of not littering and stuff, that you can help preserve it. And I don't know, and like, that's especially important to me because for years, since 2018, I hiked on the Lone Star Hiking Trail. And like, okay, this isn't historical importance, but it's our trail. It's the longest trail in Texas. And I would hike on it and I would just like, oh my God, there's a tree across the trail. Somebody needs to fix this, or somebody needs to cut the tree out, or oh no, somebody's throwing trash. But I never did anything about it. And then, God, maybe about 6 months ago, I finally said, how about stop complaining and get involved? Volunteering, so leading hikes, um, how much trash I pick up every time I go out on the trail. Like, there's so many things that you can do to keep things the way they are and maybe even improve them. And it's not just, we don't always have to take. Like, we can be respectful, we can be supportive, and there's tons of ways that we would be able to do that. All right. And so, are there any trails that offer any kind of unique insights into New Mexico's past, or into the New Mexico's history?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them. Like up where I'm from, there's Bandelier, and that's where the ancestral Pueblo people lived. They used to call them the Anasazi, but I guess you're not supposed to call them that anymore. It's outdated. But like all around New Mexico, the Pueblo Indians lived all around here. So there's traces of them everywhere. And up in Bandelier, did we talk about this already? The
I
Bandelier
think you
stuff?
mentioned Bandelier.
Yeah. Well, so there's the town up there is built on volcanic ash, which is really easy to dig through. So they um, basically dug what's called a kiva. They dug that into a cliff up there, which is just like a big cave where they would have ceremonies, and then you can see like an ancient village that's now it's just a bunch of little walls. But hiking around, you'd always see pottery and shards of you know when they were knocking stones together to make tools. You can find stuff like that out here. So yeah, I mean, people have lived here. Actually, this is I just remembered this, but they just found in White Sands where I'm living. They just found the oldest footprints in America, and I think yeah, I don't want to say it wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're 20,000 years old. Um,
Jeez.
yeah, um, and I think they're way older than people previously expected people were living here. And anyways, the listeners should just look up new footprints, ancient footprints found in White Sands, because it's amazing. Because just thinking about people being here for that long is pretty incredible. So, and that's just, down here, there were people, but there were people all over the whole state, like up in Bandelier, there were people. The one of the most famous ones is Chaco Canyon, which I haven't been to yet, but it's actually like I think it's called a UNESCO heritage site, and it's like one of the most well preserved ancient cities I think in the world. Yeah, and that looks absolutely incredible. I still haven't been to there. You should send a link with all the research you did, and I mean, there's I don't know dozens of different places you can go around here and find really cool ancient sites, stuff like that.
And do you think is most of that stuff, or is there any of that stuff that's on BLM land, or is it like usually state parks, national parks, or preserves? Because like in Arizona, when Ryan was on, he's just out in BLM land, and he stumbles across like an ancient ruin that's not protected. That has the cave dwellings and all the writing and all that stuff and pots and stuff, and it's crazy. And he said even some of these things aren't even marked on maps, it's just out there in the middle of nowhere. So do you see, like, or is that a possibility if you're just out in the middle of the BLM to stumble across this kind of stuff, or is it pretty much documented and protected?
That's definitely, I would say, 100% a possibility.
Yeah,
Um, just because there's so much land in this state, thousands of square miles, like they're not going to be able to find everything.
yeah,
And if people have been here for that long, for tens of thousands of years, there's no way people have found everything there is to find. And I, I would imagine if they were to find something significant enough, they'd try and protect it. But I don't know how that works with on public land. That how it would even work to go about setting up a little preserve or whatever to protect the thing. Actually, when I was working in Los Alamos at the Los Alamos National Lab, they found they were doing I think it was just maintenance or construction or something, but they were digging in the ground and they found a complete skeleton in the ground. They had no idea it was there, which is
wow,
pretty crazy. And then they had to shut down everything. And since it's on, it was on the national labs property, they have archaeologists and people that would go in and protect that afterwards, document it. So yeah, I mean, of course, there's stuff that people aren't haven't found yet. I mean, buried bodies, buried stuff that's been buried for a long time that gets swept up by the sand. We had these archaeologists at the lab who would watch us work to make sure we weren't damaging anything. And I was asking one of them about like Indiana Jones stuff. I was like, "How do I find buried treasure out here?" And he was saying you could go to like UNM, the university in Albuquerque. You could go there and you could find You could go. He's like, you gotta find the source literature the conquistadors, the Spanish people, were writing down everywhere they were traveling. So you could learn Spanish and go through ancient records and try and find
what
some
the
kind of
heck?
gold. He said you probably wouldn't find gold, but maybe like a breastplate or
Yeah, And there's a lot of that. Well, there's a lot of lore about that kind of stuff in the Guadalupe Mountains. Yeah, I just couldn't imagine. And it's funny that you were talking about, there's absolutely a lot of stuff in New Mexico that probably hasn't been discovered. And I'm even thinking about, like, in the Guads, like Jose's grave. Not a lot of people know about it. It's right off the highway. It's either on like the highway easement or it's private land. I always think, so I'm really torn. I, at some point, if that information's not shared, then that part of Texas history is just gone because you don't see it, right? It's down this embankment off the highway. You would never, ever, ever see it from the highway. And as much as I think he should be left alone and, rest in peace, and I would love that. And I thought about writing the congressman that's in charge of that area, that precinct, and however, spiritually, to do something where, whether it's Native American or any kind of Mexican traditions, because I think he was Mexican Apache, where it would be respectful to have a ceremony and dig him up, put him in a cemetery where he will be remembered with a headstone, and then take the headstone that's currently marking his grave and put it in a museum, a Texas historical museum, and with his story, because I have the letter that his commander wrote of how he died, and I found it in a New Mexico archive
No way.
because Colonel James Longstreet's commander was in New Mexico, and so I'm torn. Like, I don't know if that's disrespectful to him or respectful, but I just like it. That's just such a neat part of Texas history that again, there's not a lot of people that know about it, know where it's at, and I would hate to know that, I don't know, when I die, and people that are like minded like me that love the Guads, that when they die, that just kind of gets lost.
That's an interesting, yeah. It's an interesting idea. I don't know what the right thing to do is either, obviously, but so you found the letter in the archives. That's cool. Where did you find? Was it online?
Yeah, I don't know, Sam, how I even got. I was heading to Guad, and I was just doing research on Jose because I know the story that everybody knows, and I was just digging, 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 clicking on this link. Somehow went to here, saw this article from like a random person, and then searched on these words, and then it just led me to it. It was probably about 2 hours of just playing around, and it was from a New Mexico archive, and it's not the official. Usually some of the stuff you had like the letter and then an actual picture of the letter. So it was just highlights of the overall letter that was written, and with dates and times and stuff. So I actually probably are one of the few people that actually know the real story of how he died.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. So I don't know either. Like, what's the right thing to do? I definitely feel not recognizing this, again, not recognizing this part of Texas history and just letting it go by the wayside. I don't feel that that's right. Um, and I don't know what kind of guy he was. The letter didn't say. They don't know what kind of guy he was. He just showed up. They brought him on as a guide. But I love me some Jose, and it's my tradition every time I go to Guad. I go visit him, and it's on the way to the park. It's about a 5 minute walk to get to. Well, you've been there. You went with me the first time we found it.
I was there when you discovered
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So yeah, so I go and visit that dude and talk to him, hang out for about 20 or 30 minutes, pick up trash that's around because people throw trash from the highway, and just have my time. That's kind of how I get in sync with the park and get ready for hiking. So This is next question is actually probably goes to exactly what you're experiencing now, being in a new place. As someone from New Mexico, living in New Mexico, how do you go about to choose new trails to explore?
Yeah, that's some of it is just since I've lived here a long time, word of mouth, what you hear from other people. Um, but being in a new place, still I'll ask my coworkers and stuff. My One of my coworkers just went up to Cloudcroft and he was wandering around, so I was like, "Oh, show it! Like, let's bring up the map, you know. So let's see where you went because I know that I want to go there." And there's the obvious answer, which is just Google, which a lot of times is actually pretty good. I mean, it'll just you just go to all trails and it's like, oh, this trail is everyone loves it and it's got 5 stars. Okay, you can go check it out. And obviously, I've heard. I know I have a friend who works for the Forest Service, and she told me that like, oh, I don't like all trails because people will get lost and the maps aren't that great. So I don't know, but it's a good way to kind of like see what's around and like what people really liked hiking.
I think it's kind of funny. I never in a million years thought about using all trails of all uh, possible references to find a trail. And everybody that's been on the podcast, everybody that I've probably ever talked to about, hey, how do you find new trails? And they're finding trails in Michigan and California and whatever. They go, all trails. I don't use, they're like, all trails through the search. I want a loop. I want a 10-mile loop. I want a 2-mile loop. I want a trail that I could possibly die on. Whatever. They use that
Yeah,
to search, and then they start looking at locations. Okay, there's 10,000 loops all over the United States. Okay, well, I want to hike in March, so I want to hike in July. So, okay, so I need maybe cooler type locations. And I never would have guessed that. Like, I don't use all trails. I have, before, just kind of a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I have never not had someone say that's how that I've let me rephrase that. I have never had someone say any other way of them kind of finding, on these trips that they've been on. And it always starts with all trails.
there you go. All trails should be a sponsor of your show, I guess. Yeah. It's just like, how do you find anything anymore? You type it into Google, and All Trails is one of the first things to pop up. They have the algorithm or whatever. So yeah, it's just the way the world is these days.
So for you, do you use all trails a lot for your recommendation or searching for trips? And
Sure, I'll at least look at it, but I don't pay for the subscription.
yeah, I don't pay for a subscription either. And I think the reason why is I often find all trails to be pretty inaccurate with distances and stuff. But I'm definitely going to start using it more just as general searches for the trails. So yeah, it's just funny that I've always kind of turned my nose at all trails, and it ends up that a whole lot of people that use it for especially general searches. So that's something that I'm going to start doing more of. So as we kind of start to wrap up, I've got two two more questions, and then I have a new segment that I'm adding to the podcast called the lightning round. So I hope you're ready for it. It's just random questions that I've come up with, short, fast, and hopefully you'll have a lot of fun because I did it. Today is Monday. I did it Saturday with the panel. It was a lot of fun. I think they had fun and I had fun. So last two questions. What is your most memorable hike in New Mexico and why?
Yeah, I was trying to remember today if we talked about this earlier in the podcast. So the hike on my birthday, my 30th birthday, was definitely the most memorable one because it was my first solo backpacking trip. And then on top of that, it was in February. through the Sangre de Cristos in in the Santa Fe area, and it was insanely cold and snowy, very challenging. So that one I'll always remember for sure. And like turning 30 is a big deal, and it was an interesting experience. I'd recommend for someone's like important birthdays like that, like go out and be alone and just go for a long hike because I just spent a lot of time just looking back on the past decade and thinking about all the things that happened to me and where I was and how I ended up there. So it was pretty special.
So, when you got back from that trip, did you learn anything about yourself?
Hmm. I mean, that's a good, interesting question. I don't know if I.
If you look at what you went through and how many people could have just easily turned around, right, and said, "Screw this,"
Yeah.
and you pushed through.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely shows some resilience. I mean, this was after I'd already done the PCT with my brother. So I had put in big miles before and I'd gone through challenging backpacking experiences. So I already knew I could do that kind of thing. So I don't know if I learned anything new about myself. I guess I would say that like it I definitely got a lot of time to think about, my 20s and all the stuff I had done. I think it helped me sort of like realize I was actually kind of proud of my experience in my 20s. Like I had done all kinds of crazy stuff. I
Yeah.
think I met you when I was 29, and that was right before I had done that, lived in my car doing forestry work all across the United States. I worked for all these crazy different companies, and I had traveled across Europe, and I'd done the PCT with my brother, and so there was a lot of stuff to think back on and be kind of proud of myself. And finishing that trip, obviously I was just excited to be alive and warm, that I made it through, because it was like, I think that night it was I have a little Sunto core watch, and it has a temperature, it has a thermometer in it, I guess. And it was, I think, got down to 17 degrees. And so, and then I was crossing through the stream, freezing cold water over and over again. So I was a little worried for sure at points in that trip where I was like, I hope I don't slip through the stream in the wrong way and break my ankle or something and get stuck out here and freeze to death. Like I had a little satellite device, and all my warm stuff was in waterproof containers, so I was pretty safe. But you never know.
So, speaking of the PCT, would you recommend doing the PCT and sharing a tent with your brother?
No, that should be the lightning round because the answer is really easy. Sure, I don't. I don't think. I don't think in my experience after that I was like, the person you can go hang out in their tent for a while and go back to your tent. Like you don't need to be that that close to them, What? But
There's a first off, Sam, I'm always proud of you. And there's every time to the listeners, every time I'm around Sam, there's a few things that I have to have. And one of them is a PCT brother story about the trip. And I probably heard them all at least once, some of them a few times. And sometimes I even say, hey, tell me that story again because I just love them. So, yeah, I had to throw that in there.
I'm sure there's some you haven't heard at this point. But yeah,
Probably.
I love talking about the PCT. So yeah, I'm happy to talk.
Yeah. So, last question before the lightning round. What advice would you give to someone hiking in New Mexico for the very first time?
Enjoy it. I don't know.
No.
You only eat your first ham sandwich once. You only get to do the first thing for the one time. Try and find something. Try and find the really coolest place to go.
Yeah.
Like I think if, like we talked about in the last or earlier, we talked about cool places that I'd recommend. Go someplace beautiful and just enjoy it.
Yeah. I think I would tell someone there's probably a bunch of things, but like the top things I would tell someone, and this is from my experience in New Mexico, is pick pick a region. So east, west, north, south. Don't say I'm gonna, do something in the very south and I'm gonna drive up to the Enchanted Circle, then I'm gonna shoot off. Just pick a region because every region, every location has the absolute most spectacular things to experience. It's not that one part of New Mexico outshines the other. You are going to be amazed with any of the location or the regions of New Mexico. So just pick an area and do everything you possibly can in that area. And if you are leaving to come back home from New Mexico and you start feeling sick, you don't have a bug, you don't have a germ. It's just New Mexico does that to you. Like when you leave, you just feel like you're leaving home. I don't know, the cities because I don't go into the cities and stuff and how they are, but I can tell you in the wilderness areas on the trails what you experience. It's hard to head back home. So that would be my advice that to anybody new that wants to, or yeah, that is planning to go into New Mexico and experience it for the first time.
That's good advice.
Yeah. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm
All
ready.
right. So we got 29 questions, and it's just short answer. No
Okay.
thought to it. Whatever comes to your mind, shoot it out. Not story format, just rapid fire. So, very first question: what is your favorite snack on trail?
What, Ruffles, those Ruffles, cheddar and sour cream.
Hardest trail moment you've survived?
Wow. It was up in Washington on a PCT.
Most beautiful sunrise or sunset you've experienced?
I don't. Well, I hiked Machu Picchu. Maybe something out there in the Inca Trail.
Go to trail shoes: boots, trail runners, or sandals?
Trail runners.
Favorite hiking season?
Fall.
One word that describes how you feel when you're on the trail.
Content.
Day hikes or overnight backpacking trips?
Back overnight.
Okay. Water crossing, sandals, or just charge through it?
Charge two.
Sleeping pad must haves: comfort or lightweight?
I'd say comfort.
Favorite piece of gear you swear by?
Really love my hyperlight backpack.
All right. Heaviest luxury item that you carry?
Stove and gas.
A trail magic moment you'll never forget?
We met a ski patroller up in Washington, and he bought us all bought us dinner, and then let us sleep in the ski patrol station, like house on the mountain. He let us sleep there.
Most worn out piece of gear you've owned?
You've seen that green tent, the legendary green trekking pole tent.
Yep. Coffee on trail, must have or skip it?
I wouldn't say must have, but I love having coffee on the trail, so I'd say have.
Maps or GPS?
I use GPS.
First piece of gear you've ever bought?
Backpack.
Most overhyped piece of gear in your opinion?
I don't know. I'm such a minimalist. I feel like you shouldn't take anything that you don't need. Overhyped, maybe like, man, that's a hard one. Stuff sacks, maybe.
Pick your poison on trail: encounters with bugs or getting blisters?
That's a tough one. I guess pick your poison. So I have to choose one that I would rather have. It would be blisters over bugs.
Early alpine starts or sleep late and hike late?
Early starts.
All right, this is navigation pride. Do you have a good sense of direction or are you always getting turned around?
Terrible sense of direction.
Craziest weather you've hiked through?
Snow and cold.
Coldest night you've ever experienced on trail?
That night we were talking about earlier in the Sangre de Cristos was pretty cold, but in Washington, I think it was maybe technically colder.
Mountains, desert, or forest?
Mountains.
Favorite national park to hike in?
Yosemite.
Most intimidating summit you've ever reached?
Oh, definitely. It was the Blanca Little Bear Traverse, and I think we hit the Little Bear first. So
Funniest trail mishap?
trail mishap. Oh, we were just talking about this with my brother on the PCT. I thought I tried to jump over a little bit of water, and where I landed, it was a mud pit that I went down to, like probably past my waist in the mud. Yeah, it created deceptively deep, and it didn't look like it was. It looked like it was solid.
Is that the time you almost got in a fist fight with your brother?
No,
No.
nope. That was up in Washington, I think, was the closest that got.
All right. Strangest thing you've seen anyone carry on a hike?
My friend Matt always carries this big sheath knife with a antler horn for a handle. I think that's a little silly. It's a little over the top.
Most embarrassing trail moment?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, I've shat myself before out with my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to beat shitting yourself. Pardon my French. Pooping your pants.
All right. Have you ever named a piece of gear? What was the name and what was the piece of gear?
Have I ever named a piece of gear? Oh,
Like Betsy or whatever.
I haven't named it. No, I don't think I've named a piece of gear. I've named cars. The Blue Baru. Remember the Blue Baru?
Yep.
Blue Subaru.
So no gear.
No.
All right. Last question. This is the most important question of the lightning round. What is your favorite Texas hiking podcast?
Yours.
What's it called?
Trailblazing Texas, right?
Yeah,
Did I get that
podcast.
right?
Yes, you got it.
Trailblazing Texas podcast.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, Sam, that wraps up our episode. And as always, you are one of my favorite people on earth. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast and helping to educate our Texas hiking community as to what it means to hike in your beautiful state, New Mexico. Again, I thank you. I know you're busy. It means a lot to me, and I always enjoy my time with you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.